you, Dave. Anything come for you?
Just from the farming and
Hey,
house.
if everyone would turn on their mics and just push the button on, if you push the button at the top. Perfect. Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. We will excuse Mayor Lindsay Peterson and Executive David Zook from our meeting today. They aren't able to join us. I will accept, I'll call to order the meeting of the Cache County Fire District Board of Trustees meeting for June 24th, 2025. And I will accept a motion to approve last minutes of May 27, 2025 and today's agenda as presented.
I would so move. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. No opposed. We'll move on with the items of discussion. We have a new fire chief, Chief George, and introduction which will be given by him. Okay. Thank you.
He can talk.
He can talk. Okay. Yes. If you would please come to the microphone. Thank you.
What sounds better, Chief George or King George?
Chief.
We know what happened to King George,
Yeah.
so stay with
Yeah, we
Chief.
don't believe
Okay?
it.
Yeah, I'm out on the whole king thing.
We know what
I don't
happened,
have the hair for it.
but we know what happened to King George, so just stay
Yeah.
with Chief.
Chief
Okay.
George.
Yeah. Thank you for allowing me to come and introduce myself today. I know I've had an opportunity to meet a few of you in person or through the county council meeting. My name is Brady George. I come to you from about a 30-year past history in the fire service. I started as a volunteer and part-paid member of the Roy Fire Department in Weber County. That was my home community, and I loved serving there for about a year and a half before moving to Salt Lake City as a full-time employee. I spent 27 and a half years in the city, working my way from just firefighter to paramedic to captain, training captain, and so on and so forth until I left there in 2023 as the division chief over the international airport. I spent a year and a half in Idaho at the Meridian Fire Department as their their division chief of training. Spent a lot of time working with a very rapidly growing agency there that was struggling to keep up with the demands of the community. Moving back here allows me to be back home. We had built a home in 2021 just across the border in Preston. I got to live there for about 2 months before moving to Meridian myself. My wife and daughter said, have fun up there, we're going to stay here. And so this is a great opportunity for me to actually live in the home that I built, but also serve in a community that we intentionally moved to. After serving in another community for a long time, I noticed that there was a difference in the values between myself as an individual and the organization that I represented, and it was very difficult at times. And so moving to a place where I feel that the values are very similar allows me to give my whole heart without any type of equivocation in that process, and so I look forward to that. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. I've had about 3 full weeks with Chief Hammer now to kind of start to get a feel for where things are at on the ground today, and so thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Are there any questions for our new fire chief? Not yet.
Okay?
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. Continuing on with our agenda, we have on here a discussion for an interlocal agreement between Cache County and the fire district. And I know that Jairus isn't here, but we have Eric who's going to be here representing the Cache County. And our attorney for the fire district can't make it either. Amy?
Yeah,
Amy.
Sick. She's watching it.
Okay, so Amy is excused from being here in person, but if we can have discussion on what is going to be covered and you know what direction we want to go with this interlocal agreement. I think this was some direction that some members of the board have asked that we cover at this time. So I don't know who's going to be leading discussion on this. If it will be. Are you going to be like ex officio or retired, or we just call you Rod? Emeritus. I like that. Rod. Just call me Rod. Rod, will you be, or will we have?
Go ahead with what you've got, and then I'll see if I can answer.
Sorry, I didn't know I was going to be presenting to the board up here today. I was just going to cover, I guess, what's typically needed. I mean, at least for on our part, we're willing to work with Amy. We just go through the interlocal statute to make sure everything's in compliance, and that the services are outlined. It will need to go before the Cache County Council, just so that this board is aware where budgets are being affected, because the county's going to be fronting the bill for all of the services that are being performed by the fire district. So that will need to be built in with any interlocal agreement that we have, whether it's with the county or with any of the cities, as we move forward on all of these interlocal agreements, because it's going to have to be multiple. Yeah, sorry. Do you have anything else, Rod?
Sure. I would just think
you guys
we
have
could talk about the
questions?
scope of the interlocal agreement. If it's, yeah, if we could address that, that would be helpful. If we can speak to that.
Let's speak to the scope.
I think
Yeah.
part of the problem is we don't know the details.
Rod, do you mind coming, if we do have somebody that's trying to attend virtually, that'll be helpful for them to hear. Thank you.
I think part of the problem is we don't know the details, which means we don't know the questions that we need to answer with the interlocal. I think Mr. Erickson worked with the water district, and a lot of those same things will need to apply on how that was funded. Obviously, our immediate need is if we're going to pay the district attorney for her time, then the council, that's going to have to come out of county funds. I did pay the bill for the last meeting, so we've already started that, probably without authorization, so fire me. There's some of those things, and how we're going to go from the council, or from the county to the district, and those interlocal requirements as far as service and that kind of stuff. Like I said, we don't know what all those questions are, and I think Mayor Peterson has had some questions that, or maybe some answers that she knows of. Unfortunately, she's not here with us today, but are there any that you're aware of, Mayor Monson? Or?
She actually called me and discussed a couple of things last night. She is concerned about the capital needs, what you think the needs will be. She was concerned about human resources, what kind of human resources are going to be needed, timeline, and yeah, those three were the things she mentioned the most. So.
Okay, I can answer a couple of those. As far as human resource needs, because we're stepping it off as operationally no change, human resources will stay with the cities that have the fire departments and the firefighters. So the human resources for Cache County will be for the Cache County Fire Department personnel. The human resources for Smithfield or Hiram will be your current human resources that they'll continue to be your employees. So there shouldn't be any human resource cost to the district.
But the director?
So there's that one position, the administrative, what do we call it? The chief administrative officer. That needs to be established, that whether it stays with the Cache County Fire Chief or there's an independent person, and I picture it as an independent contract person. If it's done as contract, then there won't be any human resources required for that. If it's done as an employee of the district, then that will have to be established.
And then one concern that I have that I just want to bring up, and that is we are fully established. We have all our trucks. We have all our. Are we going to be expected to pay to fund for, let's say, Mendon to get a fire station? I don't know. You know, is that going to be something that we're going to be taxed for, to fund these other towns that haven't already set up and already taxed their people? Because a lot of these small communities have never been taxed for this. We have.
Actually,
That's a real concern.
the only community that hasn't paid municipal taxes or some type of contract for fire service is Cornish and the unincorporated county.
Yeah.
So I think as we look at a stepping off point, everything that each city owns remains in their ownership.
Right.
As things wear out and need to be replaced, then the district would replace those for all of the departments. I wouldn't change title of anything that exists right now. As far as like the smaller departments, Cache County has purchased their frontline engine and their water tender for most of the departments in the valley. That will remain titled to the county. And when those wear out, then the district will then fund the operational change and the capital equipment for that. But there's no need to change ownership of anything that's being used for within a city right now. It doesn't make sense to go through all that and just let it age out and then be replaced by the district. And at that time, that's when the district would have to levy a tax to fund the capital equipment, whether it's through bonding or through a tax to replace that capital equipment.
So I guess I'm not, and maybe I'm not saying this right, but I know that you've talked about building fire stations in new places, and they would have to be,
That,
and then, given the equipment, who,
right, and that would
Going to be
come
taxed?
from, anything going forward would come from the district.
so
So-
my people that have already paid for their things are going to have to pay for this as well.
Yeah, and one way to look at it is, if you look at state taxes, or even county taxes, the county builds roads in areas that your citizens may or may not drive. The state builds buildings and roads and provides other things that maybe we don't use from Cache County. But if we levy a tax that's for fire countywide, then everybody's paying the same amount, and then it's used to provide a service, rather than one city taxes their citizens and then provides services to other people who aren't, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, kind of. I think that one thing that's kind of bothering me is we've paid those. We've done that for years and years and years. And suddenly we're being asked, moving on, to pay for somebody else's, even though we've done it for lots of years. And I understand the roads, that makes sense, but I've got to sell this to the citizens.
Sure.
Do they just cover your city, your firemen? Or
No, we help out with,
yeah, so those taxes are going to pay for services outside of the city as well. And so this is,
So, yeah, to that point, you are supplementing the north end of the county with your response through both EMS and your mutual aid and automatic aid with fire. So the service is already going out, yeah.
Mr. Larry, whatever your name is.
Chris, I hear you, and as mayor of Nibley, who has contracted with Hiram for a long time, we don't own any real estate in terms of fire service. So Chief, I think it's a great idea to age out equipment and then have the district buy new equipment. And then we, as a board, are gonna have to figure out what about real estate, because real estate doesn't tend to age out, right? Cities that have invested, Hiram, Smithfield, for example, not Nibley, for example, I'll admit that. We have not built a fire station in Nibley. We have relied on a good neighbor to the south, for that fire protection. And so to maybe let you guys off the hook, I think we can ask these questions of Chief Hammer and, I'm sorry. Okay. But this is something the board's gonna have to wrestle with, right? I mean, this is the heavy lifting of this board, and, you guys can give us advice, but we're gonna have to figure out how to do this. And I feel for you, Chris, you're making a valid point. And the roads, makes great sense, but there might be some differences in that, Smithfield and Hiram, and North Logan's in the same boat as Smithfield, or?
They're
They
serviced by Logan.
contract with
They
Logan.
contracted with Logan, that's right. But Smithfield and North Logan specifically charge taxes, and based on fees that Nibley might have paid, for example, to Hiram, you know, build that real estate, that, what happens to that? You know, that's not gonna wear out, that's not gonna be.
Well, and we can come to you with data and with best practices, where things should be built, what equipment needs to be replaced. But that's all on you guys to fund. That's, if you don't want to levy taxes for fire service and it continues to remain the same, then growth is going to continue to outpace service and we're going to be behind it. Now, granted, Smithfield's got a great department, probably the best department, maybe not size-wise from Logan, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with Smithfield Fire Department. I think if you ask the chief, he could use a couple more people in operations, especially with as much mutual aid as you guys send out to the north end. And that's something that the chiefs would have to get together and say, these are the needs that we have, can it be funded? And if it's funded across the county rather than only at a city level, then that seems to be a little more fair throughout. Does it mean costs will go up in Mendon or Lewiston? Probably will. Does it mean costs will go down in Smithfield and Hiram? I don't know the numbers. I don't know the answer to that. But we're just at a point, I mean, you guys are sitting good. You've got a great station that you've built over time, and Hiram's just right behind there. They're starting to build, they're starting to hire. They've got a great facility. A lot of the other departments don't, and there are holes in the system where we don't have the response time for a lot of people. Nibley's one of them, Hyde Park's the other, that there's a high population and a fairly long response time. And if there isn't a funding mechanism for a station or people to be placed there, you know, we hate to use the term there will be a tragedy or people will die. I don't want to say that, but the service provided isn't up to the standard that's needed. And that's what you guys have to wrestle with. I've said it before, is you determine the level of service. And I would hope that as a board, you would begin to look at the level of service countywide across the entire district rather than from your own city. And I know you've got to sell this to your own citizens. You're the mayor, and you've got to take care of your cities. But at the same time, this is a different thing, and you represent the entire district, all the people in the district, with the decisions you make.
So, I mean, you hit on my next point, a question for the board. Are we trying to equalize the level of service across the entire district? It's gonna be hard to do. Are we trying to equalize the cost to each resident, you know, across the entire district? Or are there places that there will be higher levels of service, and are there places that there will be higher costs, and are there places that the opposite will be true? And I don't know the answer to
Make
that right
the
now.
answers, Larry. You're asking the questions, and now get the answers.
King Larry doesn't get to do that.
I can tell you this, the level of service will never be equal. It's not equal in Logan. You know, they have 4 stations they work out of, but there's longer response times in certain areas of Logan. It's never going to be equal in the county because you're not going to put a full-time station in a town like Mendon because the call volume's too low. It's just physically impossible for the amount of calls that you have. But there is a way to staff things so that everything can be covered as quickly as possible with enough people showing up that we can take care of the problems.
Yeah, maybe this is a place to invite Councilmember Erickson to the conversation. If you speak for the unincorporated part of the county, I mean, I don't know how we have the same level of service in the unincorporated part of the county.
I don't know whether the need for the same level of service
Okay.
is needed in the unincorporated. Why I say that is that building codes and things change if you are away from water source, if you are away from certain things. And you sometimes have to beef up. If you're building a building that has more rooms or bigger or things like that, you have to change things. But as far as service, I don't think you'll ever get the same, but I think we can gain a parity of pay and a cost amongst everybody. I think you really can. Now, but as far as the service, and even in a year's time, from one fire to another, it's not always identical.
Well, even in a day's time.
Yeah, exactly.
From daytime to nighttime.
Nighttime. I mean, you're never going to get it perfect, but we can just shoot for, hey, we need a station in this area because we have a higher number of people. And that'll basically then free up maybe some more response time, maybe from Hiram to go south or something, you know? I mean, everything, we just have to work with those one by one.
So,
I think the biggest thing now is to look at, hey, the study, pull all the costs in, study where are we at right now, and then we start going, okay, to get to the next level. Well, as a board, I think that what the county would say, okay, here's the base budget that we give the fire district. And then everyone take care of their own employees for now, but here's the base budget that we get moving through, that in a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, whatever it takes to replace everybody as elected officials, this is where we'll be, to where then we can levy a tax, and we grow to that point, step by step.
Dave, did you say you would accept equal costs throughout the county, even if there's unequal levels of service?
I welcome to living in the world.
Wow.
Don't
Might
you?
be hope for you after all, but.
Can I just ask a question? So real quick,
I mean, that's common.
is it paid out of the general fund from each of the cities, or do you assess it on your bills for your utility bills?
Yeah.
So is it paid out
Nibley
of
is general fund.
general fund, general fund? So you don't assess, because
I
we.
think Wellsville's
Nibley-
the only one that has a separate,
And they have a line item
Yeah.
assessment on their utility bill?
yeah.
Okay, so I mean,
For a special district or
No,
just kind of like the emergent, don't we have an EMS
it's a fee instead of a
fee
tax.
on our utility bill in Nibley? So that's how, similar to that?
And EMS is going to be separate than fire.
Yeah, we can't, as a fire district, talk EMS because the licensure is completely different. Now, the people are the same, and you would not want to split that
Yeah,
because the cost efficiency of having
manpower.
fire and EMS together vastly
Yeah,
outweighs separate.
it's huge.
So I feel like we've been formed and we all have lots of questions and ideas. So we're just kind of being the seed that's being planted, but we don't know how to grow. Like, I feel, that's what I feel like we're kind of at this point. And I'll admit, I don't know. I'm the chair, but I don't know where to go. And we don't have staff per se. We do, but I feel like I don't know what the next step is. Is this a timeline? We say, okay, first we're going to decide what election cycle we're going to be up for. Or first, do we need to do funding first? We need to do this first. I feel like I'm kind of grappling to not quite know what is my next step. And that way we can have really quite more productive meetings so that we can come here. But who do we even talk to about what is the next step?
So definitely the fire chiefs.
Thank you, chiefs.
I guess there's chiefs now.
Yeah.
In 3 days, chief. So I think that's why this is on the agenda. I think the first step is those interlocal agreements. There are already contracts in place, a lot of between fire departments and cities. We just need to make that now transition into the district. So the district is contracting to make sure that services are continued throughout the county. We don't want any services to fall through the cracks. Now that is going to be complicated because we do have to take into account costs. We have to take into account services. This is a different entity than we're used to in these contracts. And so Amy's going to work a lot. We're going to work a lot. And I think that's the first step. Make sure services are maintained. Make sure contracts are out there so that the cities and the services are there. I believe after that, you're going to want to, sorry, I had that second thought and now I've lost it. once that's in place, you need to either start looking at whether you want an elected board, or if you're going to, and also along with that, how to get taxes, how to start getting funding for the districts so that they can transition out of these contracts fully funded by the county into the district levying a tax and providing services or providing funds that way. After that, I think it's a slow year-by-year process that will get to equipment aging out and the district buying it instead of the city buying it. And Chief Counsel probably speak to that. Sorry.
Let me offer this up too.
Yeah.
This may be one of those times when you want to hire a consultant group to answer the specific questions that you have. How do we go from where we're at to where we want to be? I'm usually not in favor of consulting groups because usually you tell them, you ask them what time it is, and they'll hand you a watch. But I think in this case where you're trying to go from where we're at to wherever that endpoint is, somebody that with experience going through that might be a good advice group that you can bounce off. That's something that costs some money and will have to be done, but that might be the option.
Stephanie?
Chief George, isn't that something that you have some experience with though, is helping things move into a district, or have?
So I worked next door to an agency that transitioned from somewhat similar situation. It was multiple career departments that transitioned into a single district. That was Unified Fire Authority in Salt Lake. And so obviously they're a great resource in the state to kind of talk about that process. We are a little bit different than they are because so many of our organizations are volunteer or nearly all volunteer in the process. One of the big struggles that they had to overcome in that process was establishing that graded standards of care or coverage for that. Where they looked at and said, our population centers, our needs are much greater here than they are here. And they were able to establish what that standard of coverage was and then set benchmarks that said, when this area achieves the same level of property value or population density, then we will have to increase the coverage to create that equity within the system. And so that's something that can be done. It's really starting through that process of establishing what that standard of coverage is and then what those gradation benchmarks are in that process. A third-party consultant group would be great in assisting with that. They're going to cross-reference most of the NFPA standards for that stuff because it has such a great proven track record for providing quality service.
Or you can do it.
If I just follow up, I want to, maybe there's one thing for me to hang my hat on from this discussion. Did we just say that the contract, for example, between Nibley City and Hiram City, Nibley City contracts to Hiram for fire protection, would then cease to exist and that would move to a contract with the fire district? Did I hear that right or wrong?
That's actually how it was originally. The cities
Yeah.
that contracted, there was a three-way contract between the district, the city, and the providing city. So that kind of fell through election and personnel change and.
Okay. So the answer is yes.
The answer could be yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the fire district is the legal entity that is responsible for fire protection everywhere in Cache County besides Logan.
Okay.
So they are the authority on providing that service.
So if I put Mayor Miller on the spot, our provider for fire service, I can't say that I'm opposed to that from Nibley's point of view. How do you feel about that?
About continuing to provide service?
That Nibley City now currently has a contract with Hiram City for fire protection, but we would not have that contract at some point and instead,
We'd be fine,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
I'm just,
And
Not that we don't appreciate doing business with you.
Not that you don't like our money, but,
I mean,
and we love your
Cache
service.
County, even the Cache County, the unincorporated would have a contract the district,
Okay, that.
to cover
that
all those
helps me.
services
That
everywhere
helps
in the
me.
county.
Okay.
And I'm confused, why loan as an out?
1967.
When this was established,
I remember, yeah, yeah.
if you look at the council or the commission minutes and the newspaper articles, Logan didn't want to be part of it because they were afraid they would be, and this is a quote from minutes, they would be subservient to the county.
Aren't we all subservient to the, no, sorry.
Wish.
But this is a little different because you guys are the board.
There's a song about that.
Everybody's subservient for it.
Cities against the counties, counties against the state.
Not the
state
county.
against the feds.
The county.
I guess, yeah, I guess the county's out.
swallowed a fly.
So that's the big difference.
Well, Mayor Jacobson, also, a lot of our volunteer firefighters are from Nibley.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
And so that will, you know, some of that would, if the station built, you'd have people to be able to move from us to that station
Yeah.
and cover that area.
And I agree that I believe the level of service for all parts of the county, especially neighbors to where a new station might be built, you know, benefit from that new station. And strategically, it seems right to put the station where it does the most, any new station where it does the most good, the quickest. And then I'm quite impressed with what seems to be kind of a kumbaya sort of feeling here, that there aren't winners and losers, but somehow there might be winners all around. Maybe I'm being too optimistic. I'm not usually that optimistic.
Well, I mean, the hope is that we raise the level of service. I mean, I've said it before, we're behind. And if by raise the level of service, the board gives more money to Smithfield to hire more people or to build a station in Hyde Park, so that Smithfield doubles the number of stations they have in that area, and that's the right decision, then that raises the level of service for the Hyde Park, the North Logan, the Smithfield, because now you've got a backup station that can come into Smithfield quicker. It's funding an increased level of service, is really what we're after.
And it's not just in one city. It's not just in one
No,
town.
because every station, so if you have a fire in the county, there's gonna be at least 4 departments that go. You know, if there's a fire in Richmond, Smithfield's gonna be there with everything it got, which leaves a hole in Smithfield and Hyde Park. Lewiston will be there. Hopefully Trenton will come, and then probably North Logan. So there's always gonna be multiple stations that respond. And if you increase the density of those stations, then you have a faster response time. And you have the ability to pull those people together and still protect your own area.
Is level of service completely determined by response time, or is it also by availability of equipment? And is it more complicated than just response time?
We're good on equipment.
Okay.
Over the years, we've done very well. Cities themselves, as well as the county, our level of equipment is really good. Service depends on response time because of the nature of fire.
Right.
You know, in 4 minutes, you've got a flashover, so you want to get there before that. And then it requires a certain amount of manpower to affect the right tactics. And if you don't have that manpower, then you can't do the tactics that you need.
Right.
The nature of emergency services is, like when there is a fire in Clarkston, it is not Clarkston's fire. When there is a fire in Nibley, it is not Nibley's fire. It's everybody's fire, and that's how they look at it. Same with the EMS. You know, wherever the call is needed, that's where they go. The boundaries are shut down. It's all of a sudden when we start talking about money. Then all of a sudden it becomes, that's mine, and that's mine. And that's really not the nature of emergency services. Emergency services is, and it always has been, at least I know within the people that are actually in that field, the professionals, they just look at it as saying, hey, you need help, we're there, no matter what it is. It's the doggone politicians that get in the way. Say, we paid for it, you pay for it, all that stuff. And I'm not, Chris, you're not,
Thanks,
I'm not saying that, I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying, that's the nature of everything that has been. And so what's interesting, what you were just saying just a second ago, repeat that again.
The service level
Yes,
provided
yes,
is determined on time and on the amount of people that can respond.
and the reason though, you said just before that, as far as the equipment.
Oh, the equipment, we're good.
Well, the equipment, and why are we good? Because we have what? The county has actually oversaw a lot of, hey, we need the equipment, we need help here, you need help here. You know, the boundaries, they just weren't there. We just made sure that, hey, they need a bigger engine. The fire board at that time, they would budget it accordingly, and yeah, we would send it because that's where the need was. We just didn't look at it as saying, well, you know, that's Clarkson's problem, oh, that's their problem. No, it was a county-wide, because when we sent something to a particular site, we knew that there would be fighting fires everywhere if it's needed. And that's what the fire district needs to look at, it is more broad, that we'll be actually covering everything. Even Logan, if they're needed.
How many times does Smithfield go to Logan?
Exactly,
Or Wellsville go
exactly.
to Highland?
Rod, if I may. I'm still kind of digesting something that you answered, some discussion between, you know, the contract between, for example, Nibley and Hiram will become a contract between Nibley and the fire district. So who ultimately will hire the chiefs within, and will we need as many chiefs within the district? Am I getting ahead of myself? Or will they be, or, that's what I'm saying, who's this all gonna, because we have a chief already fired for the county, which ultimately we will have one for the district? I don't know what this is,
So, in the short term, each department will function as its own department. So they'll have their own chief, they'll have their own HR, they'll have their own personnel, none of that changes. Cache County has a fire chief, Brady, and he's the chief of the Cache County Fire Department, not Fire District. So he manages his people, does the EMS stuff, does the fire stuff, does the wildland stuff. That's his role, that's his scope. The Smithfield Fire Chief runs the Smithfield Fire Department, is the department head. Does the hiring, firing, all that stuff the department head does. And that doesn't change. Now, long term,
That's what I want to know about.
if it makes sense, and I'm not saying it does, but maybe long term, something like that would happen. But not short term. And if you think about it, right now we have 220 firefighters, if you include all the departments, excluding Logan. That's a management difficulty, to say the least, to manage that many people. So one person to manage that'd be a pretty big change, and that would take some time to instill.
I guess it just kind of depends on following the money again. If it's all funded by, once the district is freestanding, then maybe the city, I don't know, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm getting ahead of myself. I don't know how to answer these questions.
We're ahead or behind.
I don't know.
The district just goes to Smithfield and say, Smithfield, would your department still cover these areas? And we make sure that you have the funding to do it.
And
You know,
that's my
Hiram?
concern is, I know that it's important to my fire department to be able to remain a department.
Yes, yes.
And that's why when you say in the short term, I'm thinking, okay, that's good, but when we get to the long term,
And it doesn't have to change for long term.
Yeah,
This
but
is
the,
up to you guys.
but the thing is with the long term is often the makeup of these departments is changing. The volunteerism trajectory is actually, it is going down. So that may change, that may be the change in the long term, that we say, that the fire districts say, well, okay, we need to expand our role to help these smaller departments. And they may become a bigger role in it, unless we all change and volunteerism goes up and there's more help. Yeah, I don't know, it's a changing world. But we'll be in a position to adapt I think, I won't say easily, but we will be in that position to adapt once we are still contracting with these different entities to, hey, you still cover the service here, you still cover the service here, here are the funds to do it. You know, we've got, I guess, the county-wide fire district tax in place, we're levied, and we just make sure the funds are accordingly, and we just fund your departments to cover those areas.
And that's where, if you get into the taxing model, and that's where hopefully the cities would lower to offset what's being raised through the fire tax. Because your city won't have to raise taxes on your city to be displaced by the taxes coming from the fire district.
Yeah,
In a perfect world.
I don't expect it would be dollar for what Nibley has paid to Hiram, but it seems like there would be an offset of
Yeah.
some of that goes to the district and still ends up in Hiram or wherever it needs to end up.
But what I've seen in departments over the last years is it's hard for a small town to increase funds to their fire department. That's probably hard for Logan too. I know it's been hard for the county. So to overcome that, if you have a broader tax base that can pull all that up together, then I think we stand a better chance at increasing that funding.
Yeah.
And increasing the service. I would hate to say you're gonna pay more taxes and the service isn't gonna change. You may have more taxes initially and the service catches up to that. But I think it would be a disservice to say, now you're gonna pay more taxes, but nothing's gonna change.
Well, anytime we talk about services that government provides, there's always an economy of scale, right? The first gallon of wastewater you treat is the most expensive. The first trash can you pick up is the most expensive. And so, I'm sure we're talking about an economy of scale here, and we have to balance that, especially recognizing communities that have their own fire departments and are proud of those fire departments, and they have proud firefighters. That we have to recognize the autonomy that has grown from grassroots. Somewhere, I hope there's a balance.
So, not to jump ahead, but
Yeah,
would it make sense either, I think we need a map.
Yeah,
We need a path to go.
we need a roadmap.
And who draws that map, that needs to be
That's a good
determined
question.
and maybe funded. And then,
I'm directionally challenged to see what me to draw.
so that would be a decision that maybe
Maybe
we
there's a
want to
GPS.
make next time. If you want
so
to
it says a legal subcommittee on this, if I'm following the agenda.
Yeah, so that was to coordinate with the two attorneys and figure out the legality between Cache County and the fire district as far as what needs to be an interlocal agreement essentially.
What needs to be included in the interlocal agreement to be presented to the county council and to the fire board for
To say,
decisioning?
Yeah, the county's willing to do this until this period of time or however it needs to be.
Or do you want to take nominations?
Yeah, that would be
Hey, I nominate Lindsay Peterson.
nice. She's
Serves
not,
her right.
she's not even here, so
Wait, let me ask her if she's okay with that. Yeah, she's fine.
she's fine. Do we have an idea of how many people we want to serve on that, or just everyone, those that are willing, or Lindsay and anyone else? Maybe another,
So it'll work with Chief Brady, right? I assume.
chief. So, yeah, we'll work with, and then the legal counsel representing the council, the county, which would it be you, or would it be? Okay, okay. And also Amy, who is the hired attorney for the district to establish service agreement
Larry,
and
you'd
et
be
cetera.
so good. I nominate.
Does it
Larry
make
Jacobson, too.
I was gonna say, it
Yeah, so
seems
Dave
like the
looks like he
county
should be
needs
there.
representation.
Oh, you're looking down here?
Well, we got two Davids.
You know,
Are we gonna nominate the two people that aren't here?
you know, I'd be happy to actually. I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
You know, it's so, because I think there's one big thing that we need to establish is a base, just a base budget that'll be turned over from the county's budget to the district, just a base budget.
Dave, thanks for volunteering, because I know in my conversations with Rod, much of what we're doing is being patterned after what's done with the water district, because that's our only experience we've had thus far. Even though this situation is dissimilar, it is similar, right? And so where you've had that experience, that would be really helpful for
With
you.
the water district, we had, at the time, was at $350,000, or $300,000, or something like that. And that's what the water budget was.
To get personnel,
And all, when
studies.
the district was formed, literally, that was just given to the water district. That was the base budget, that's all they could use for those 4 years, until they had taxing authority. And everyone was selected in there. And then, at that point, then they could establish their own levy for running. But it took that long. It took several years to just kind of evolve into baby steps, saying, oh, we need to hire a manager. So they hired Nathan Dowds. You know, and he's done a wonderful job. And they got the right person in there. And then, oh, we need a treasurer. And we need an account. And we need someone to do minutes. We need some, you know, they just organized to where they become 100% independent over those few years. But it was all on that one budget. Now, were they able to go get grants? Were they able to go? Yes. Were they able still to participate in things? We still did a whole bunch of things with that money. And I think that's kind of the basis that we need to kind of look at, saying, okay, the minimum that we will be working with is this much, so that we can just get going
From the county.
from the county.
Okay, so we need a name, maybe, just, do we call this a steering committee?
Well, it says it's a
What do you
legal
Interlocal
subcommittee.
agreement.
Well,
We
the
wanna try-
legal, is this the
Legal
legal subcommittee, or that was something else to decide how the county and the
That's
county?
just how the county interacts with
The
the district.
district,
As
right,
far as an interlocal agreement.
right.
As far as the steering committee, that I think would be something.
And
Oh,
I think
my
we're
bad.
talking about the
Sorry.
steering committee,
Okay,
right? So
yeah,
I'm gonna
excuse me.
propose that as a name, for lack of a better term. And Chris, now that, you know, we talk about Lindsay, and now that I see Dave, thank you for your gracious acceptance. Now that I see the county is represented, if you all want 3, and you wanted me to be on that steering committee, I would at this point say yes, not before.
It'll, you know, we'll get through it. It's just a matter of,
Thank you.
And
Don't-
it should
don't
not be
eat- let's don't
4,
eat the
because then
elephant
it's a
in one
quorum
night.
of this
Yeah, you
board.
can
And
only
so it
have
should,
3.
I think 2 or 3 with staff's help is the right number.
Great,
I think that sounds good.
okay.
Yeah.
but it's gonna
Should
be
this be
critical that basically the people that we're gonna be talking to will be Amy. You know, as
Amy
far as the
and
legal.
the county.
And then you, well.
Well, they'll be
and-
representing the county's
And then you're
interests.
representing the county. I mean,
The
and
county's interest.
all of this will come together, but all the decisions will basically be brought and formulated at that point for decision ratification here.
But we need to be steered
Yes.
in the right direction.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your willingness to serve. And Lindsay, thank you for your willingness to serve. So now,
So I think you should
should we,
memorialize that with a
okay.
motion.
We have a motion to have, what did you call this committee?
Okay, I'll
Steering
make a
committee?
motion to
Thank you.
establish a steering committee to draw a roadmap of how to get from where we are to where we want to be. How's that for not really saying anything? And I nominate Lindsay Peterson, Councilmember Erickson, and Larry Jacobson to be on the steering committee.
Thank you. A second?
Second that.
Second? All those, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Thank you. Thank you very much for your willingness to serve and for taking that on to help us find more direction. Thank you very much. So this legal subcommittee name is changed to this.
No, I thought.
Or is
the
that
legal-
separate?
Two separate things.
That's separate.
Yeah.
Okay, so this separate one,
It's being
The legal
called.
subcommittee is the two attorneys
And so what's the name
and
of
the
this?
steering committee
what?
works with the
I'm a
legal
little
subcommittee.
confused. I'm confused.
Same committee, different purpose.
They're gonna do both things?
Same members, do both.
Easily.
I think they overlap. I think
I do.
they overlap, because I think they have to identify what comes next before they can drop legal documents, right?
And I think that discussion, when we're sitting down with Amy as a committee.
Yeah, I think that,
Okay, hey, because everything you're gonna be talking about will have some legal aspect. Okay, we gotta do it this way, oh, we gotta do it this way. And so that's how the roadmap will be developed is, you know, that scope and sequence of legalities that we're gonna have to get through.
okay. Well, thank you for taking on both of those. Appreciate it.
You got anything else, Catherine?
Let's see what other responsibilities we can pile on you. Is there any further discussion or items that we have for this meeting? We have a big thank you to, oh,
I will say the driver of a lot of this here will be not necessarily us from the board. A lot of the driver will be, if there's someone like a Nathan Downs that we hired, or someone that, you know, as part of that we could pay out of that basic budget or something, we get someone in there to do all that legwork. That makes
How do
sense?
we propose the basic budget, and who comes up with that?
That's-
Who proposes it?
I think the county needs to really look at that much. Look at all of our, you know, what is the basis? Not everything, not all of the equipment and everything. We're talking just some administrative portion.
well, and
of
I
the
think
budget.
that's the first step, is getting that chief administration officer or chief administrative
Exactly.
to be able to
I think that's the
do
critical.
consulting work in the beginning. It would
Right.
just be consulting and as a contracted employee.
The orchestra don't sound very good unless there's a good director.
Yeah. Yeah, so,
At least that's what I heard.
okay. Well, and continuing, a big thank you to Rod. We recognize that he's retiring, even though we told him he couldn't, but he says he can. So thank you very much for your many years of service to the county, and thank you for all of your counsel and help to us as a board, and we really appreciate it. You are a very, very valuable asset to us, and we are looking forward to working with Chief George, and I'm sure we'll still see you, maybe, I don't know, hopefully.
He's gonna skip out of here and keep skipping.
I know, but truly, thank you very much for your service and for all of your help. And with that, we will go ahead and adjourn. With a next meeting TBD, because I think the subcommittee will meet to kind of bring the next business to us, I think. Are you okay with that as
Yeah.
subcommittee members?
No, that would be good.
You guys will be driving kind of what
And
our next agenda will,
We're coming into July.
yeah, which is.
That's where you go on vacation all the time, probably.
I don't know what the
He
definition of
lives on
vacation is.
vacation. He lives on vacation. He's retired. We will be adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain.
Justin asked a really good question, but
Justin Mon?
yeah.